Welcome everyone. This is 15.7 conditions for rectangles, rhombuses, and squares. Rectangles, rhombuses, and squares are classified as special parallelograms. Okay. So what that means is if they're special parallelograms, they would have all the characteristics of a parallelogram. Okay. The characteristics of a parallelogram, remember, are opposite sides, are parallel, opposite sides are congruent, opposite angles are also congruent, and the diagonals bisect each other. Right? So we talked about this on our last lesson about these four characteristics. But rectangles, rhombuses, and squares all have these characteristics. They're special because they bring something else. Okay, they also have another characteristic that makes them rectangles, makes them rhombuses, and makes them squares. So what all we're gonna do today is talk about the characteristics that they have, and that'll be the lesson. Okay. So what else does the first one, what else does a rectangle bring? Well, here are the two characteristics that a rectangle brings. Okay. Is that all angles equal 90 degrees. Okay. That's the characteristic. That all of these angles here are 90 degrees. So if you see one, a parallelogram that has a rectangle, it is at the very least a rectangle. And I say very least because a square is a special type of rectangle. Okay. And we're going to talk about square later. Okay. If the diagonals are congruent, this one is that the diagonals are congruent. Okay. In a rectangle, the diagonals are congruent. But also in a parallelogram, we know that the diagonals bisect each other, correct? So we can say in this picture here, AC is congruent to BD, right? But if I add something else here, like let's say point E, I can also say that BE is congruent to DE and AE and CE. They're all congruent to each other, right? Because if the whole thing is congruent and they bisect each other, then the little parts are also congruent. Okay. So we can add that here as well. AE is congruent to CE and is congruent to BE and is congruent to DE. Okay. So that's what a rectangle brings. Okay. So if you see a right angle, it's a rectangle. If you see diagonals that are congruent, it's a rectangle. All right. What about a rhombus? There's three things here. Okay. All sides, this first one, are congruent. Okay. If one pair of consecutive sides of a parallelogram are congruent, then it's a rhombus. So if you see that two consecutive sides are congruent, then you know it's a rhombus. Okay. If the diagonals are perpendicular, so this one is the diagonals are perpendicular. So if you see that the diagonals are perpendicular, then they're congruent. Or then it's a rhombus. I'm sorry. Okay. And the last trait here is that the diagonals bisect the angle. Okay, so that means that this angle is congruent to this angle. They're actually all congruent to each other. Okay. So those are the three traits for what makes a rhombus a rhombus. Okay. And a square is special because it has all the characteristics listed above. So it's a rectangle, rhombus, a parallelogram, and a quadrilateral. Okay. So there's nothing special about a square. Okay, there's nothing different that it brings. It just has everything. Okay. It's like that special Pokemon. Anyway. So how I organize this and how I think about it is with a quadrilateral umbrella. So if we have an umbrella here, I'm going to try my best to draw an umbrella. Okay, there's my umbrella, right? And on one side of the umbrella, we have a parallelogram. Okay. On the other side of the umbrella, we have a trapezoid. Okay, we know all the characteristics here. Okay, the difference is that a trapezoid has one pair of parallel sides, where this has both pairs of parallel sides, right? And then we all listed out the characteristics, right? Okay. Now, a parallelogram breaks off to be a rhombus and a rectangle. Okay, and then rhombus and rectangle, you know all the characteristics, right? What makes a rectangle? A rectangle is right angles. What makes a rhombus? A rhombus is that all sides are congruent. Okay, I'm just listing out one of the things. Okay, there's more characteristics, but okay. And then a rectangle and a rhombus had a baby, okay, and they named him Square. Okay, because a square has all the traits of a rectangle, or all the traits from above. Okay. So all squares are rectangles. All squares are rhombuses. All squares are parallelograms. All squares are quadrilaterals, right? So as you go up this umbrella, it's all, okay? All squares are rhombuses. All squares are rectangles. All rhombuses are parallelograms. All rectangles are parallelograms. All parallelograms are quadrilaterals. That makes sense? All. As you go down this list, it's some. Okay? Some parallelograms are rhombuses. Some parallelograms are rectangles. Some parallelograms are squares. Some rhombuses are squares. Some rectangles are squares. Okay? No rhombuses are rectangles, and vice versa. No rectangles are rhombuses. Okay? We can't go across. Go up, it's all. Come down, it's some. All right? So the most specific one that you can get, the most specialized one, is the square. Okay? And as you keep going down this list, they're more specialized. Cool? Questions? Okay, so know the theorems and know what makes a rhombus a rhombus, know what makes a rectangle and a square. And that is your lesson for today. Okay, on 15.7, rectangles, rhombuses, and squares.